Alrighty, so today I'm going to be drawing with and reviewing an orange Uniball Signo UM-151 0.28mm sized pen, which I bought at the Pacific Mall in Toronto, Canada for $2.89 Canadian, or around about $2 USD. I've used this style of pen before, the Uniball Signo style of pen with the 0.28mm size, and it is a much smaller size than not. And with darker colors, the colors are certainly a little bit less prominent than not, I think is really the right way of putting it. So I certainly am very curious to find out just how distinct the orange color is when compared to thicker pens and when compared to the darker colors that the darker colors of this pen do provide. As a whole, I'm looking forward to drawing with this pen for the first time today, and I'm looking forward to giving a full review as well. First off, let's go ahead and go over the packaging of this pen. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and get the pen all out. I'm going to go and let you guys know what the pen actually looks like, what it feels like, what the quality is like, and just how it feels in hand and everything like that. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and actually get to drawing with the Uniball Signo UM-151 0.28mm size pen in orange. And I'm going to go and let you guys know how this pen actually is. And then after that, I'm going to go and give you guys my final thoughts, and I'm going to go ahead and give this pen a rating as well. But first off, as said, we got to start with the packaging, which has a lot of orange going on, as we can see, which makes sense because the general color of the ink of this pen, the literal color of the ink of this pen is orange. So it definitely does make sense to have an orange background going throughout most of the packaging. We can see a little bit of an orange background up here, then that orange background goes to a little bit of a clear with a white background, and then it still has orange details and whatnot down here as well. Starting at the very top, we can see there's a little bit of a hole, so this can be hung up in stores and whatnot. And then there's a little bit of a sort of speech bubble with some Japanese on it right there. Not exactly sure what that means, I will acknowledge. Then under that, just has some more Japanese right there. Once again, not really sure what that means. Under that, it just says 0.28mm right there, just trying to drive home that this is an absolutely tiny pen. And this is an absolute tiny pen. Let me tell y'all what, it is one of the smallest, if not the smallest, you can get on the market today without absolutely just slicing through paper. Like this will slice through paper if you really want to try to do it. And it's not too hard to try to do that in all honesty. But below the 0.28mm size text right there, we can see there's some more Japanese in white on that orange background. And then under that just says UM-151-28 right there. And that's the actual product code for this pen. On either side of the pen itself, which is in the center, we could see more Japanese just going down either side. And then right here, we could see on a little bit of a rectangle with curved uppers and downers, we can see it just says Uniball right there, and then Signo right there. And then there's some more Japanese right there, and then it just says 0.28mm right there. And then under that, there's some more Japanese, and then it just says Mitsubishi Pencil Pencil Co. Ltd. And then that's pretty much all there is to the front of the packaging. There's really, there's actually not at all anything else going on with the front of the packaging. In all honesty, that's literally all there is to it. Did a little bit of a speed run of the front of the packaging by accident, in all honesty. While I guess not checking the translation for what the text means will do that, because I really don't know what any of the text means. In all honesty, I completely forgot to check the translation for the text before this video, but that is what it is. Let's go ahead and move on to the back of the packaging. We can see the back of the packaging is pretty much just purely informational. It's just white, no sort of orange background, anything like that. I personally think the front of the packaging does a pretty good job of kind of calling out to you on the shelf, making it clear what it is. This is obviously a Uniball Signo UM-151-28 with the orange. It's got orange background, very visible on the shelf and everything like that. The front of the packaging is supposed to be really good. It's supposed to be really eye-catching, and the back of the packaging is not meant to be like that at all. It's just meant to be informational. At the very top right here, we can see just how to throw away the packaging and whatnot. Then we can see it just says UM-151-281P right there, and then there's the barcode, and then there's a bunch of information, just says 0.28 right there, some other stuff, etc., etc. Then it just has some stuff down here, Mitsubishi Pencil Co. I'm sure it says in Japanese, a little bit of a mailbox and a phone number and all that sort of stuff. It's pretty much just informational, but because I don't read Japanese, I can't tell y'all what it actually says, because once again, I did forget to translate what the back of the packaging says, just like I forgot to do with the front of the packaging. But what I can say is that I do like how the packaging looks as a whole, especially in the front. The back is like it does its job, but its job is not meant to look pretty. It's just meant to be informational. The front, though, I think looks pretty decent. It looks a little bit cheaper than that, don't get me wrong, but it does a really good job of kind of calling out to you while still maintaining a decent sort of slightly gimmicky look, I definitely have to say. I don't think it's like the best look ever for a cheap piece of pen packaging, but I certainly don't think it's the worst look either. And as a whole, I do think the aesthetics of the packaging look okay, and I think the functionality is pretty dang good as a whole, especially since the orange replicates the orange of the pen itself. Overall, I don't mind the packaging one bit. But without further ado, let's go ahead and grab my scissors from my little bit of a pencil thing. And actually, let's put these to the side real quick. I was about to cut into this, but I can't do that quite yet. I got to make sure I grab myself a little bit of a screenshot, a little bit of a thumbnail for the video. So let's go ahead and try to do that just real quick, just like that. And there we go. Hopefully that screenshot will do. I probably took a little bit of a too long of a break in all honesty, but without further ado, let's go and grab my scissors and let's go ahead and just cut it just like that. Get the pen all out. And let's go ahead and now start taking a look at this pen right here after I get the trash out of the way. This pen as a whole is definitely much lighter than not with the cap on. It's pretty front heavy. Those are just my initial impressions. We can see there's an orange, sort of like a little bit of a cap back here, a little bit of a clear orange, I'd have to say. We can see the pen itself is mainly just crystal clear, like a Bic crystal. We can see the ink on the inside of it is, of course, orange. And to signify that this pen does indeed have orange ink and whatnot, besides just looking at the orange ink itself, the grip for this pen is indeed orange, and so is the plastic on the sort of clip right here. We can see the lid itself is clear, but the clip itself is clear orange plastic, and on that clear orange, it just says Uniball Signo DX 0.28 right there. Is there any other details going on with the actual look of the pen itself? Just taking a look at the cartridge. I can't exactly see what it says. It does say Japan on it. Does this come out? It does come out. Let's go and take that out just real quick. So it just comes out just like that pretty easily, if I do say so myself. And it just says, oh, let's see. Can I read that? Excuse me. UMP-1-2H, Japan, 18.12-K203. There's some more text over here, but I can't make out exactly what that says. I'm trying to make it out. My eyes are not quite good enough. I don't even know if it really means anything, but there is some text on the insert itself. We can see the tip right there is all metal, and then the orange ink is very, very, very vibrant, to say the least. And just taking a look at the pen itself without any of the orange ink in it, without the cartridge in it at all, we just see the orange right here, orange down there, orange right here. So it is still very clear that this is indeed an orange colored pen, even without the cartridge in it. Let's go and put the metal tip back on now. And let's just take a look at this real quick. We can see that this has a bunch of dots on it and whatnot. It's kind of placed where you're going to want to kind of hold, I'd have to say, up just a little bit. You don't want to hold like right here by any means, like right towards the very end. You probably want to hold like right here. Not exactly sure where the best spot to hold this pen might be. Let's just see. Do I have here we go. I have a similar one. This is a high-tech C, or sorry, this is 0.25. This is 0.28. So this one is slightly bigger than a high-tech C. The high-tech C, it kind of has the same thing going on where it's a little bit above that. So I guess that's not something too different when compared to a pen of this size and whatnot. But definitely a little bit different than I'm used to. I'm used to being able to hold like all the way down towards the very bottom, and that's just not the way you can do it with this pen. As a whole though, with the cap off, due to the metal cap itself right here, the pen is definitely more front weighted than not. Like definitely is just, yeah, definitely much more front weighted than not. Just kind of feeling it. Yeah, definitely much more front weighted than not. The overall weight of the pen itself is a little bit lighter than not, but not like super light by any means. The cap itself does click onto the back a little bit easier than not, and when you're moving it up and down in your hand, it does not get caught by any means, which is something that is nice. So if you put the cap on the back, it's a little bit more, I'd have to say, back-weighted than front-weighted, but if you take the cap off, it's definitely more front-weighted than back-weighted, so I'd have to say if you want to write, probably put the cap on the back and start writing just like that, and if you want to draw with this pen, I would have to say take the cap off just to begin with, and don't even put it on the back or anything like that kind of thing. That's just my personal opinion. As a whole, though, cap off, as a whole, a little bit more front-weighted, cap on the back, a little bit more back weighted. And as a whole, it feels a bit small in my hand personally. I do have not small hands by any means, so it's really no big surprise that it does feel a little bit smaller than not in my hand, but it definitely does feel a little bit too small for my hand, frankly put, but it's not horrible by any means, I definitely have to say. I do think that this pen would get uncomfortable over a certain length of time, but maybe if I hold it like this, it would be a bit better. Not exactly sure, though, in all honesty, just trying to hold it a little bit of different ways, a couple of a different way, a little bit of a, get more jumbled up. Trying to hold it a couple different ways, and it is none of the ways are particularly comfortable by any means, but man, none of them are super uncomfortable. I just don't think that they would be comfortable for like long lengths of time per se. As a whole, though, I think the look of this pen is pretty decent, has a decent, simple, cheap look to it. Not super cheap by any means, definitely mid-range cheap if you ask me at least. And just has a decent look to it as a whole, I definitely have to say. Feels a bit small in hand, has a nice weight to it, a surprisingly nice weight for a cheap pen like this. It is like of a normal weight to a normal cheap pen, but how it's weighted is nice, I think is what I was really trying to say. As a whole, you know, I haven't drawn with it yet, but not too bad so far. Not too bad so far if I do say so myself. Well, I do suppose without further ado, I should probably go ahead and actually get to drawing. The pen as well. It's very smooth in the palm of your sort of thumb right there and everything like that kind of thing. The plastic glides very easily. It's not particularly sticky by any means or anything like that kind of thing. Let's go move my scissors back to where they were, and let's go and grab my Soho Urban Artist sketchbook that I have right here, and let's go ahead and get it all opened up to the nearest open page so I can go and start doing some sketches with the UM-151 Uniball Signo pen in orange. So let's go and start it off by just doing just some tests, just like that kind of thing. And right off the bat, I'm honestly surprised, one, at how distinct the orange color is. It's much more distinct than not. Usually with like very thin lines, you get much more sort of light colors than not. Like let's use, now this is a gel pen, I do believe. Whereas I want to say this one's a ballpoint pen, but this is a 0.5. We can see the line difference, but I would have to say the orange is actually more distinct than the black, which is not usually how it goes. So that is very interesting. But overall, right off the bat, the orange is definitely a little bit more distinct than not, which is something I really do like and is actually something that was a little bit more unexpected than not. I really did not expect the orange to be as distinct as it is, frankly put. The pen is quite, I'd have to say, I mean, like, for the size, it's surprisingly smooth on paper. It doesn't really feel like I'm going to rip through the page, but it's also one of those things where it's a little bit rough. So I am feeling the need to be a little bit lighter with it than not. I'm not pressing down super hard by any means, but even when I was pressing down super hard there, like, you got a little bit of bleed, not bleed through, but you got a little bit of pressing down onto the next piece of paper, but it didn't actually go right through. I do think it would have gone right through if this was a thinner piece of paper, but because this paper is like, what, I think it's 75 pound, it did not go right through. So if you're using like, I'd have to say like 70, 75 pound paper, if not heavier, it's probably not going to go through, but anything thinner than that, you do risk this pen going through the paper, frankly put. So if you're taking notes or something like that on thinner paper, I definitely have to say you probably want to hold this pen a little bit lighter than not, and you probably do not want to press down super hard with it. But I am very impressed actually just drawing with it from a distance like this as well, like with my hand kind of above this. Like I'm used to kind of wanting to hold it as close as possible, but even when I'm holding it like kind of a little bit far back, it's actually still very controllable, which is not something I really expected in all honesty, and is actually kind of a surprise, frankly, but I really did not expect this pen to be this controllable from this far away, but it really is. It's actually not a big deal one bit, and actually it's a lot more comfortable for me to hold it like that than it is for me to hold it up close, as one may expect. It was designed to be held far back like that, so of course it's going to be more comfortable, frankly put. You know, as a whole, the color is surprisingly distinct. How does it actually feel on paper? Definitely a little bit rough on paper. It's definitely a little bit rough. Now, it's definitely smoother than something like, let's say, a Pilot High-Tech C or G-Tech C, which is a 0.25 millimeter size pen, which is, I think, I can't remember if it's the only pen that's smaller than that really on mass market, because there's other pens that are even smaller than that, but they're not really mass market by any means. This is probably the only mass market 0.28, with the High-Tech C probably being the only mass market 0.25. I can't remember. I'm not super up on that, in all honesty. I don't tend to use super small pens. They're not really my thing. I like to do big drawings, and these pens do not lend themselves to big drawings, of course. But no, I mean, like, it is rough on the paper. Like, this paper also has some roughness to it, so that's kind of to be expected. But, you know, it's nothing unhandleable. It doesn't feel like I'm going to rip through the paper at any time, especially when I am just kind of smoothly going. Like, just definitely make some noise. Definitely a little bit of roughness. This pen definitely prefers to be held at an angle as well, I definitely have to say. Like, when I'm just holding it straight up. I mean, like, it works, but I definitely have to say holding this pen at an angle at about probably like that kind of thing is probably preferable. But you can, like, how far over does this pen go? Like, I'd have to say, this is about, that's probably about the max you really want to go kind of thing. But, you know, this pen, it is a little bit rough just because of the size, but it is surprisingly smooth at the same time. Like, just comparing it to the 0.5 millimeter size pen, I mean, like, this compared to that is super smooth. But it's not levels more smooth. It's smoother, but not insane amounts more smooth. So honestly, I'm very impressed with how smooth this pen is for the size. It's really actually quite smooth, in all honesty, and that's something I really do like quite a bit, because it doesn't feel like a knife on a piece of paper. It doesn't feel like I'm going to cut right through. It feels like it's actually wanting to act like a pen, not like a knife, not like a shank, frankly put. But as a whole, I'm very impressed with how just distinctly colored the ink is. I am very impressed with how smooth this pen feels on the paper as well, and I am also impressed with how this pen feels in hand. I really like how it's front weighted. It's actually pretty comfortable to just draw with, just like this kind of thing, just doing like some quick little bits of writing. Like, it's not too bad to write with either. Still very controllable and whatnot. You know, honestly, I'm liking it a little bit more so than now. Let's go ahead and do a real drawing with it, though, instead of just a little bit of a sketch. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of an eye. I'm going to take off my watch real quick. Put that over to the side right there. And let's go ahead and I think I'm going to do a little bit of an eye right here. And the orange, oh man, it comes through distinctly just on one line, but when you build it up, it really just comes through so well. It feels like a very thin pencil, like a very finely sharpened, not thin pencil, that's not really the right way of putting it. It feels almost like, well, one, a mechanical pencil on paper. It doesn't really feel like a pen. It feels more like a mechanical pencil in my personal opinion, like a very fine mechanical pencil. And two, it feels like a very finely sharpened normal pencil, which is very interesting. It's, but at the same time, it does kind of feel like a pen. But it's surprisingly unpenman-like. Unpenman-like? Unpen-like. Not penman-like. This is just a pen, not a pen man. You know, the orange, especially when layered, it just gets so deep, it gets so rich, and that's really something I do appreciate. I really was not expecting it to come across that deep, that rich, but it really is. I really like that. As a whole, I'm pretty satisfied with this drawing, and I think I'm just about done with it, so I'm going to go ahead and flip to another page. And that entire drawing was done with me being a lot more light with the pen than not, which you really do have to be, especially if you're trying to layer with it. You do still risk kind of going through the paper just a little bit, because this is a much smaller pen than not, but not so much when you're being a little bit light with it, and that's exactly what I was doing on purpose there. Let's go ahead, and I think now I want to draw just a little bit of a fish. So let's draw a small fish. And you know, this pen, it's really not meant for the type of art that I like to do. I like to do really big, bold art. But at the same time, the lines become very sketchy, and they become very dark and deep, and honestly very satisfying for kind of what I like, which is really surprising. Now, one of my main concerns with this pen, I will acknowledge, is whether the pen will dry out if it's not being used like every day. That's one of my things with the Pilot High-Tech Cs. I own Pilot High-Tech Cs. I've used Pilot G-Tech Cs before as well. They dry out. I have bought multiple of them. They've all dried out, and then I have been unable to use them again. I've tried warming them up. I've tried multiple things. I have not been able to get them to be able to be used again. So I do wonder if the same thing is going to happen with this pen. I hope it won't, but I'll find out. If it doesn't happen, I think I can definitely say, I mean, like, it's a what, a 0.3, a 0. Not a 0.3, a 0.03 size increase over the Pilot High-Tech C for a pen that no longer likes to dry out on itself and die. You know, I would consider that a win. And honestly, if that is the case where this pen does not like to dry out on itself, I think I would definitely much rather prefer using this pen over the G-Tech C or High-Tech C. It just feels better in hand, in all honesty. It's a little bit bigger. It's not a lot bigger, it's a little bit bigger, so it definitely just feels better in hand, in my personal opinion. For me, at least. And I definitely have to just say I prefer holding it. I also kind of just prefer the size a little bit more, but also I'm kind of biased towards bigger size pens. But I do like this. It's really good for little tiny details. I like it. And there's the little fish. I think I want to clean that bit up as well. Well, I do think now that I've drawn two different drawings, I think it's time for me to go ahead and let you guys know whether I like this pen or not, and whether I would buy it again for the price I paid for it. So do I like this pen right here? The Uniball Signo DX, I'm getting more the Uniball Signo UM-151-28 DX in orange. Do I like this pen right here? Yeah, especially for the price. I paid about $2 USD or $2.89 Canadian for this pen. And for that price, I really like that. I really like it. I really was not expecting to like this pen as much as I do. I was really expecting the orange to be really faded, and I wasn't really expecting to build well, and I was expecting the pen to be super scratchy and not smooth at all, and I wasn't really expecting it to be very much my personal preference, but the pen is a lot smoother than I thought it was going to be. The orange is much bolder than I thought it was going to be. It's actually not too uncomfortable in hand by any means. It's got a nice weight to it. I actually really like the Uniball UM-151-28 in orange. I actually really like this pen right here. I think it's a very solid pen. Now, is it like one of my favorite pens ever? No, it's not. I do tend to prefer bigger pens, but I do have an appreciation for smaller pens as well. And really the only thing holding this pen back is the color. Now, in my personal opinion, different color pens should be rated differently just because colors come through differently. Just because something is true with this color does not mean it's also going to be true with, like, let's say black or something like that kind of thing. Just because the orange doesn't dry out doesn't mean the black is going to dry out. Doesn't mean the black isn't going to dry out as well. Different inks, different gels have different consistencies and whatnot. And the black is a different gel than, well, the orange, of course. But the main thing that's really holding this pen back for me is the orange. just simply because I don't use orange for a lot of drawings. I tend to do my drawings black on white paper. Black pen, white paper. That tends to be what I do. That's my personal preference. Sometimes I use other colors as well as a secondary color, and that's where this pen is going to be coming in for me. Maybe I'll also use this pen as just a normal primary color as well, sometimes whenever I'm feeling like it. But the main thing holding this pen back really is just the orange color, frankly put. But it's still not really a big deal, and I gotta admit, I think this pen is still going to be getting a high 3 out of 4. If it was black, I think it would be a solid 4 out of 4 because I actually really like this pen. But honestly, for me, this pen, it's like a solid high 3 out of 4. When compared to something like, let's say, the Pilot High-Tech C or G-Tech C, which for me, after this pen dried out, even though there's plenty left in it, it's very much a 2 out of 4. For me, not like the worst pen I've ever used, but definitely like a 2 out of 4. This is definitely a significant increase in just being better. Now, only time will tell whether this pen is actually as more reliable or just as unreliable as the High-Tech C, G-Tech C, same thing. Only time will tell as to whether this pen is just as unreliable or is more reliable than that pen. I'm looking forward to finding out. But right now, this is very much, for me at least, a high 3 out of 4. And this is definitely a pen that I'm going to be reaching for, I think, maybe a little bit more so than not when I want to do detailed drawings in the future. And I might have to buy myself one of these pens right here in black and try it in the future as well. In all honesty, I really like this for detailed work, and I think I'm going to be using this pen a surprising amount, a lot more than I expected to use it. Coming up very soon. Well, certainly no complaints on my behalf. I like this pen a decent amount, and it has been a great time drawing with my new Uniball Signo UM-151 pen in orange for the first time today. And I certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this pen, if you guys have used this pen before, and also let me know what you guys think of the drawings I did today as well. Certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have, of course, as said, make sure to comment below. And also make sure to check out my Instagram, my book, my merch, my P.O. Box, and my second channel, all in the description down below as well. I also highly recommend liking and subscribing. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, y'all. Till the next one, stay safe in peace and have a great one. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying?